Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to School Board of Upper Dublin, School District of Upper Dublin legislative meeting. The school board today is July 17th. Yep. And so welcome. It is now 7:03. We are in the Cardinal Room. I'd like to begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everybody please stand? I will lead it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ms. Evans, a roll call, please.
Mr. Shimoleski.
Here.
Mrs. Good.
Here.
Mrs. Hester.
Here.
Dr. Ludwig.
Here.
Dr. Kim.
Here.
Mrs. Rothman.
Here.
Dr. Resnick.
Here.
Mr. Sirota.
Here.
Dr. Levinowitz.
Here. It's July and all board members are present. So we'd like to welcome everybody. Dr. Wheeler and Mr. Vinogradov will not be with us tonight. They are both taking vacations, not together, separately, out of the state, and a much well-earned vacation for both of them. So I'm sure they will return ready to go. So instead of the superintendent's report tonight, I've asked Mr. Sirota just to provide us with an update on the project review committee, Sandy Run Project Review Committee.
Thank you. So the project review committee met for the third time last week. At the end of that meeting, we went around the table to find if members had formed an opinion on what to recommend to the board, or more discussions or data were needed. The top line result was nearly consensus that the existing buildings don't meet our needs. There were some other consistent concerns as well. The committee will ultimately recommend that the district should build new rather than refurbish part or all of the existing structures. But the recommendation will be more nuanced than that. There are some caveats, mostly around spending as little as possible in the process in order to preserve the capacity to fund significant projects in other buildings. The committee was sensitive to the fact that there's a lot to be done elsewhere, and we want to ensure that the Sandy Run project doesn't get in the way of those. In order to facilitate this, the committee will strongly recommend that the district formulate a multi-year district-wide facilities plan detailing what projects will be done, when, and how they might be funded. And our facilities director, Bob Lester, is already working on that. So the remaining questions are how much to spend and when. And the committee would like us to be as modest as possible and not spend it before knowing that we'll be able to fund those other projects. So the next step is for a draft of the committee's recommendation to the board to be circulated to the committee and then finalized at the committee's next meeting on August 8th. The remaining questions about time and schedule and such will be put to the board's operations and finance committees over the next several months, starting with the operations committee next Thursday. So hopefully that recommendation should be finalized on August 8th and presented to the board at the board's next legislative meeting after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Burry, anything to add? Are we planning a presentation on Thursday night?
As Mr. Sirota indicated, we will be discussing again PFM. Jamie Doyle from PFM will be coming to discuss and present some options that we have that are very preliminary, but taking in both a better case and a worse case. And we will be having other discussions prompted, by the committee that evening or the public.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we're at a community input, first round of community input. Kindly step up to the podium, state your name, where you reside in the township, and your following our policies, 4 minutes. Ms. Brister.
Anita Brister, I still reside in Fort Washington. First question is, has the board made a decision, or are you thinking about having some town hall type meetings just on the focus of the middle school situation, or maybe you want to call it facilities situation, for wider community input, because that really hasn't been done yet, and I just don't think there's enough time to do it at a regular legislative meeting. I think it should be maybe at least one or maybe a series of special meetings. Mr. Sirota touched on this, but I noted that even some of the people who supported the project really supported it with great reluctance. More reluctance than I see on the board, which I thought was interesting. So the concerns and the reservations were, as Mr. Sirota mentioned, the need for an updated long-range plan, the needs at the other schools, which one gentleman said were significant and in the realm of $50 million additional dollars, aside from whatever happens at Sandy Run. The already high debt, which was listed as above average, which is interesting. We don't really want above average debt. Could lower the bond rating if it goes much more above average, meaning above average to the other 21 districts in Montgomery County. And of course, last but not least on my list, the concerns and reservations that we already have very high taxes. I mean, I'm sure that you have heard, I know you've heard it from me, that people are getting concerned that this, not exactly for the same reasons, but when taxes got too high in Cheltenham, people did not put that as the #1 place to move, even though it used to be considered a premier, excellent school district. Because high taxes, if you're much higher than your surrounding districts, can make you sort of undesirable. So I guess another question, aside from about the town hall meetings, would be, when do you foresee having this long-range facilities plan? Would that be before you vote for the middle school? What's on the table now is a $70 million project. And what Mark just said is probably the crux of everything, but he said it, but he doesn't have an answer, and no one seems to. How to fund it? So my question would be, when's this plan going to be done, and how are you going to fund it? If $70 million is on the table for Sandy Run and a possible another $50 million for the elementary buildings, I mean, to be honest, often you have things in the agenda that this high school needs things and Maple Glen needs things. So I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are, other than raising our taxes to a point that's extreme. And last, well, maybe not last. No, I have one more. So at the meeting, somebody said that our taxes have been above the Act 1 index 10 out of 11 years. I don't know if that's correct or if it was 9 out of the last 11 years. But either way, our taxes have been raised above the Act 1 index for either 9 out of 11 years or 10 out of 11 years. Somebody at the meeting mentioned various reasons why Wissahickon is different than us economically or financially or has lower taxes. But that person didn't mention this. They obviously have lower taxes because for 5 or 6 years, I don't have it exactly in front of me, they didn't raise taxes at all. Not just that they didn't go above the index or at the index, they somehow managed, and I know you're going to say they had a larger reserve, but they also probably managed to be a little more fiscally conservative, and there was probably a 5 to 6 year stretch of 0% tax increase. And I think you have to really look at that. And I'm just going to quote Dr. Resnick, which I did before, and I really have to praise him as he's not running again. Are you killing the golden goose here for Tupland? And if I'm out of time, he can explain it.
Jen Kuzmin, Sport Washington. I just had a question. The security vestibule construction project at Thomas Fitzwater, where we had to build it out to make it more secure, what was the original quote for that, and then what was the final cost for that project? I'm just curious. Thank you.
Jenny Waitella, Sport Washington. As the person that wasn't with the consensus on that group, I just want to also explain some things why I just don't think we can afford it. That's the bottom line. And I made an example of the fact that I compared my house to one in Wissahickon. As much as I hate to, as a long-run rival of Wissahickon, having gone to Upper Dublin all my life, that my house when it was built, I found another house, this similar built year, similar cost, similar taxes back then. My taxes now are $15,000 a year. That same house in Muskegon's about $8,000. And my house, while it's not on the market, I don't intend to move. One of my similar house on my street just sold for $650, and one that sold in Muskegon $750. So a $750,000 house with $8,000 worth of taxes versus a $650,000 house with $15,000 worth of taxes. That's a huge difference. I know we pay extra, and I'm willing to pay extra for a small, wonderful community we have here. I'm willing to pay extra. I know we don't have to pay for trash, and that's wonderful and everything else. That's a $100,000 difference in sale price, and that's what happens. People are willing to spend money on the biggest house they can in a mortgage, but they don't want to spend the half and half. They don't want to spend half their money on the mortgage on the bad valued house and half the money on the real estate tax bill. They want to get the biggest house they can with the best deal with the best district. And on top of that, we also aren't ranked. So that's also depressing a value of our house. Now, I know it's wonderful to live here, but someone coming in isn't, so then my value of my house isn't as high. So that I wanted to clarify, because I think some people flip that around my analysis, and maybe it'll be flipped again, but I don't know. But anyway, also, I'm very concerned with the committee itself, although I'm thankful you guys put me on it, knowing that I probably was going to be a dissent. The timing of the meetings this summer, I think, is really unfortunate, is the best I can say, because it's unfair. The public doesn't know, and I know that almost everybody I talk to says, oh my God, please, we can't afford to do that. We know we'd love a new building, but we can't afford it, and I couldn't agree with them more. I also am concerned that there's committee members that aren't residents. I'm also concerned that there's school board members or would-be school board members effective in November on this committee and haven't actually come out and said they were school board members or going to be in November or on the slate. So I don't think the general public knows that. And also the fact that there's a commissioner. There's 7 commissioners in charge of $30 million. There's 9 school board members in charge of $100 million. I think it's unfortunate we have a commissioner having a say on what we are deciding on our buildings over here on the school district. And I think that, anyway, I'll leave it at that. That's all. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll try to answer some of them. Mrs. Rhoda?
I'll try to, I think I can get all of them, but of course if anyone has anything to chime in on, that's fine. So will the board have town hall meetings about the middle school for wider community input? I think the answer is definitely yes. We haven't scheduled anything formally, but that is the intent. When will the long-range facilities plan be done? It's already underway. We don't have a date yet. Mr. Lester told me it's more than a month and less than 6. I don't know. We'll talk about that more in operations committee on Thursday. How will we fund it? Well, we did talk about that a bit at the last meeting. We'll have that same presentation again and more discussion about it at operations on Thursday, and inevitably probably every finance committee meeting for the next several. But fundamentally, the answer is we will borrow. How many years have our taxes been above the base index? There's been 12 years of Act 1 so far. Our increase has been above the base index 10 of those years. It was equal to the index 1 year and below the index 1 year this current year. How many years did Wissahickon not raise their taxes? They had a stretch of 4 in a row, but for 7 of the last 15, they had 0. I didn't go back further, that's what I had in front of me. The last 3 years, since we're picking numbers, the last 3 years their increases have all been above ours. They, as you said, they did come into Act 1 with a very large fund balance. They've been balancing their budget by spending it down. They're pretty much down at this point, so they won't be able to do that as much in the future. I cannot answer the question about the security vestibule. I'm going to toss that one over to you.
As you might imagine, I'd want to go back and look at the records. I mean, we certainly have the information. I just don't recall off the top of my head. I don't recall any major change orders though or anything about that, so I'll have to get back to you.
No, but I think what John is referring to, it ended up, when we started to look at it in greater detail, I think we realized that it was a more significant project than we first estimated.
Right, that one was
So-
delayed a year from the others because it was a
Yes.
much more complex project.
Mr. Lester has a comment.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yes, the project on the Dewey Capital Report was really a security vestibule. This took into account the move of offices to make the entire entrance that side of the building. Main offices were moved. The entrance was created. Security was upgraded in those areas, as well as some ADA ramps were put in where they had not been before. So there's much more into the project than just the security vestibule.
Yeah, so we can go back and see the cost, but I know it was considerably more than the original plan, because once we started looking at it, we realized we needed to do a lot more work in there, based when the architect came in and started looking at it, especially the ADA compliance with the step.
Yeah, but it was very close to what the bid prices were.
Yeah, I'm not, I think this is not referring to the actual bid, I think she's probably questioning the original
The scope-
estimate
the
versus
scope
the
of the
final
project?
estimate.
Yeah.
The actual scope?
Yeah.
Well, there was like a starting number of like maybe,
Yeah, Jay.
No, I think Jen was referring to when we first put amounts for each of the vestibule security, we estimated what they would cost. Then we had the architects come in and look at each building, and we know, and because it fits, it ended up being a lot more than the first number. Not after the architects went in,
Correct.
he gave us the estimates.
And we didn't have to have architects really at the other elementary buildings.
Correct.
We were able to do that internally.
Right. Okay.
And then, I didn't hear a question from Ginny to answer, did I? Yes, no, did I miss anything? But, we'll, if I did, we'll catch up in the second meeting, but I apologize.
Yeah, let me ask other board members if anybody would like to respond to any of the comments. Any? Dr. Ludwig?
So, I guess I'd like to talk to the comment about whether we can afford this project. So, I was at the presentation last week, and one of the things that I know just from other meetings we've had, school board meetings, that we have been working hard to be in financial condition to be able to do this project, to borrow the money and to be able to pay the increased debt service with minimal or possibly no tax increases based on this. Now, the fact that we have had a debt fall off a few years ago, we've had some other things that have happened in the township that are new properties and things like that that have come on the assessment rolls. That really gives us the capacity to pay the debt service. And to say we should be saving more money before we do a project, costs go up as you wait. You have to be spending money on fixing things that you don't recoup if you end up building new. In the same way that most people have to take a mortgage to buy a house. I think that we have the capacity to do this. And the fact that we have above average debt service, I think it's within the scope and the range that, although it is on the potentially negative side if we have reserves, and maybe Mrs. Bray would comment or disagree. I don't, if I say something that you disagree with, you can. That borrowing the amount of money that we have on the table does not seem like it would affect our bond ratings. Would you agree with that, or anything that you've heard from the council or the financial advisors? Is there anything that would indicate that would decrease our rating?
No, not at this point in time. But we have to keep in mind that we have new revenues coming on, and that we have to have a longer-term plan. So we do have higher debt than some other districts around us. But if we look at districts that are building, such as Upper Marion and even Lower Marion, we would probably see that they have higher than average debt. Cost to construct in this part of the country is also more significant than other places as well.
So the real question with how much debt is too much is, can you afford to pay the debt service? And does that skew your budget in a way that makes it so that you can't afford other things?
One of our neighbors that we often discuss that we're similar to compare ourselves to, actually I believe they're out of debt. Although now they will be doing some borrowing for some construction that they have going on. Certainly on their bond rating, the fact that they had zero or little debt contributed to the fact that they didn't have to raise taxes as well.
Okay, and just to point out, we did increase above the Act 1 index 10 out of 12 years. 3 of those years, a significant amount of that increase was the referendum debt. That was the debt service. The increase above the Act 1 was for debt service. That was approved.
Absolutely.
And we continue, I continue to make the statement that each year the tax increase will be less than the previous year. And I continue to reiterate, I will reiterate that statement, even with bringing on the Sandy Run facility project. I believe we can continue to reduce the tax increases. This year our tax increase was 2.29, the Act 1 was 2.5. Last year we raised taxes 2.79. So again, even with this project, I believe we can continue to reduce the tax increase, where if you look around us now, most of the districts are increasing taxes to at least the Act 1. We're taking referendums. Exceptions. Taking exceptions.
So without a referendum, we can't raise taxes more than the Act 1 index and the exceptions. And our amount we can take as exceptions has gone down recently. I think, no? Okay.
For a number of reasons. First of all, the PSERS is capped at the wages that were in place several years ago. I think it was 2012-13, which was $39 million. And fortunately, the good side of that, too, is that the increase in the PSERS, it's still increasing, but at a smaller rate than it has been in the past. And special education, our costs have actually gone down, so there will be no exception for that.
So we really don't even have the ability to go much above the Act 1 index in the near future in any case. So without a referendum, we're not doing a referendum. So.
Okay, any other comments from board members? Okay, I just would like to remind everyone that this Thursday night, 6 o'clock, the Operations Committee will be talking again. PFM's representative, Ms. Doyle, will be here again, and she will be discussing very preliminary numbers on how the project up to $70 million can be funded and what the costs would be for the district. So if you're available, please come to that. Please attend that meeting or go on board docs, and the documents will be available also to review. Okay. Seeing no other comments from the board, let's move on. Announcements, communications, Ms. Bray.
There are none this evening.
Okay, thank you. We have some minutes.
Would respectfully ask for approval of the June 5th, 2017 legislative meeting minutes, as well as the June 14th meeting.
Okay, 2 sets of minutes. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Rothman. Second. Oh, Mr. Good. Thank you. You're second. Ms. Rothman was second. Ms. Good. Need a motion? Any comments, questions, edits? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to the Education Committee. Dr. Ludwig.
Okay, there are 6 motions tonight, and since we have not been having education committee meetings in the summer, we'll go through them one at a time. The first motion is to approve the agreement with Great Minds to release Leah Howard to work as a Eureka Fellow for 2017-18. Any elaboration on that?
This is essentially the same agreement that we had with Leah Howard working with Great Minds last year. The one significant change is for the past school year, she was working for us 70% of the time, and for Great Minds 30% of the time. For the upcoming school year, we're changing that to having her be here at Upper Dublin 80% of the time and working for Great Minds 20% of the time.
Good. Made a motion. Any comments or questions? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Dr. Kim. Any comments or questions? Item 1, education. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Item D.
Second motion is to approve Wilson Foundation's Level 2 training for 26 elementary instructional staff on March 12, 2018 at a cost of $7,150.
First and second, any comments or questions? Administration?
I would just say that this was, as you might recall, the plan for this year was to implement in kindergarten and first grade and to implement second grade in the 2018-19 school year, and so this is the spring training to allow that implementation to occur.
For the following year?
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We have first and second. This is item B on the Education Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item C.
Item C, we approve purchase of 4 days of Wilson Foundations in classroom coaching for grades K and 1 and facilitator certification for grades K and 1 in the amount of $7,650.
Okay, first and second. Dr. Kim, thank you. Any comments or questions? Anything?
I would just say that on this particular opportunity, we are going to not only provide classroom coaching to our kindergarten and first grade teachers who are beginning to use Foundations this year, but we'll be certifying Kathy Smythe as a facilitator so that she can offer ongoing coaching to our staff.
Great. Anything else? Seeing none, this is item C under education. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And moving to D.
I move that we approve consulting services by B-Cube Marketing in the amount not to exceed $8,500 for the 2017-18 school year.
Okay, first and second again. Comments or questions? I just wanted to do just a brief statement of the work that this group has done last year, and I think we're very proud of the work they've done, and we look forward to partnering with them again this coming school year. The first and second, item D under education. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item E.
I move we approve professional development provided by the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit in the amount of $600.
Okay, first and second, comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
And the last motion is to approve the conferences as listed. Sorry, I missed one.
Yep, we got it.
Turn the page. The next one is to approve 2 exchange students to be placed in Upper Dublin High School for the 2017-18 school year.
Second, Dr. Kim. Comments, questions? Seeing none. Okay, we always look forward to our partnering with AFS, right, Ms. Morrison?
Yes, we do.
Great group. Okay, all those in favor, this is item F in education, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. G, conferences.
G is to, I move we approve the conferences as listed. Mrs. Morrison, do you want to comment on any of them?
We are, in addition to continued professional development, our school board members will be attending the annual PSBA School Leadership Conference in Harrisburg. I believe Dr. Lubinowitz, the school board president, may attend free of charge if I'm correct on that. And then Dr. Miner and I are very excited. We have both been selected to partake in the Pennsylvania Education Policy Fellowship Program, a year-long program that will help us understand educational policy in the state of Pennsylvania and at a national level. Both Dr. Wheeler and Dr. Levinowitz have completed this program and have found it very useful to leadership for the school district.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on the conferences? Seeing none, all those? Dr. Kidd? Yeah. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to service agreements. Dr. Kidd?
Sure, there are two service agreements as listed. The first is a sub-grant agreement with implementation for the IDEA Part B between the MTIU and the School District of Upper Dublin to receive $502,136.82 for the 2017-18 school year. The second is another sub-grant agreement with an IDEA Section 619 between the MTIU and Upper Dublin to receive $1,719 for the 2017-18 school year.
Is there a second? Second, Dr. Levin. Comments or questions on this? A brief comment is, as I look at this amount of money that we're getting for IDEA, that's the federal special ed money that when the IDEA law first came out, the intent of that law was to fund the cost of special education. I believe it was 35–40% of the total cost of the district's special ed. I think this does not even scratch the surface in terms of the costs of special education, and it's just disappointing that the federal government has not put a significant commitment into special education, through the IDEA grant. No other comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, item B, Dr. Kim.
Sure, it's to approve two educational placements as listed. The first is to authorize payment for ESY services to a private special education student for a special education student, the amount of $4,550 for the student's IEP and ESY program continues to be necessary. The second is to authorize payment for a 1-to-1 aid to a private special education school for a special education student, the amount of $4,483.44 from April 27, 2016 to May 31st, 2016.
Okay, second? Second, Dr. Ludden. Comments or questions? Okay, these are two educational placements. Seeing no comments or questions, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Operations Committee, Mr. Shaleski.
There are 5 motions before us. The first one is the normal one. I recommend to approve the list of excess, obsolete, non-repairable equipment for disposal. Approval on that.
Okay, did we discuss these items at a Operations Committee meeting, Ms. Bray?
A number of the motions, yes, we did. I do not believe that all of the items, at least as far as the obsolete,
Right, the obsolete is new. It's always new. Okay, so you're going to do that motion by itself.
Right.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second is good. Comments or questions on that list? It's a significant list this month with a lot of technology items that are just obsolete. We've had a number of years. Okay, all those in favor? This is item A under the operations. Please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Okay. The rest of the items have all been, as far as the Operations Committee, so I'll move those together. The first is recommended to ratify a contract with Direct Energy Business for electrical supply. The next one is to ratify a contract extension with Amorex Energy Service to lock in natural gas commodity pricing through March 2018. The next one is to approve a proposal with NJS Concrete in the amount of $12,020 to repair ADA curb ramps at Maple Glen Elementary in Fort Washington and the Thomas Drive crosswalk. And the last item is installation of floor tile. And that's at Fort Washington, Jarrettstown, and Thomas Fitzwater.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Sirota. Comments or questions on those 4 items? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to finance.
Okay, on finance we have 8 motions on pages 8 through 11. I really think we can take them together. somebody has any questions, we can pull them out. First one is approving the treasurer's report for food service fund, May 31, 2017, and the student activity trial balances as of June 30, 2017 for all the schools. The next one is approving payments issued June 12, 2017 through July 7, 2017. Next, approving the transfer from the general fund to the food services account for unpaid lunches for the 2016 to 2017 school year in the amount of $2,266.41. Next is recognizing the donations from the Upper Dublin Education Foundation as described on page 10, totaling $45,101.82 during the 2016 to 2017 school year. Subject E, fund depositories, recommending that we approve listed financial institutions and investment trusts as depositories for the school district fiscal year 2017-2018 funds. These include the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust, the Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund, and PNC Bank. Next is F, agreement with Montgomery County Intermediate Unit for food service. This is to ratify an agreement between the district and the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit to provide meals for the Head Start program at district locations. G is recommending approval of a cooperative purchasing arrangement through the organizations and institutions listed on page 11. And lastly, H is post-prom party 2018, approving a $5,000 payment for the 2018 post-prom party being held at the Philadelphia Sports Club at High Court.
Yes,
This is a variation from a $1,000 deposit is due at this time, the remaining balance of $4,000 to be paid by May 11, 2018.
Right. This is the same amount that we approved last year,
Correct.
5,000.
I'll second all of those.
Okay. Mr. Sirota, second. Okay, 8 items under finance. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to personnel. Ms. Good?
Yes, I would like to take all the personnel recommendations here, motions A through J all together, we will discuss in executive session. I'd like to make a motion to pass them all together, A through J.
Second, Ms. Hester. Okay, any comments or questions on the personnel items tonight? Seeing none, the entire personnel report, A through J. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to policy. Ms. Hoffman, I don't see any policy. No motions tonight. Okay. Under the PSBA voting delegates, I'd like to make that motion and that we approve the selection of Sarah Johnson-Rothman and Dr. Joan Ludwig to serve as the voting delegates for the School District of Upper Dublin at the PASA PSBA Leadership Conference in October. Seconded by Dr. Resnick. Any comments or questions on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, liaison committee reports. It's the summertime, so let's see if anybody's meeting. The IU?
At the IU, the board did have a meeting on June 28th. At that meeting, we approved some budgets for the upcoming school year. And as you've noticed throughout the recommendations this evening, there are quite a few that had to do with the IU. Well, we had quite a laundry list of approvals for various contracts to provide services to all the Montgomery County districts at that meeting. And our next meeting will be on August 23rd.
Okay, Ms. Hester, anything with legislative committee?
We didn't have a meeting.
Okay. And we're still waiting for a final revenue budget from the state. Eastern Center for Arts and Technology does not meet in July. We'll meet again in August. EAC, Education Advisory Committee, Dr. Levitt.
EAC doesn't meet during the summer. I do know that 3 or 4 people are planning or have stepped down from the EAC, and they're in the process of looking at new members. And I will plan to bring motions in September for resignations, appointments of new members, and renewals.
Okay, thank you. PTA?
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Has the usual public call gone out for interested parties who may be interested in serving on the EAC?
I don't think there's been a public call. I think there are some people who have indicated to people on the committee that they were interested. I mean, that is a good question, whether it should be a public call before closing
It
those.
usually is, but maybe not.
We had a good turnout, yes.
Yeah.
Anything with PTO, PTA?
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're doing work. There's
I'm sure they're working very hard to prepare for the new school year. Mr. Chmielewski, Township? No report. Upper Delaware Education Foundation is good.
We're off for the summer, so nothing to report.
Okay, excellent. Solicitors report, Mr. Proskafka.
No report tonight.
Thank you, sir. This takes us to our second community input. If you'd like to address the board, step up to the podium. 4 minutes, name, and where you reside in the township.
Jen Kuznis, Fort Washington. So I guess the reason why I was asking about that vestibule thing and the tennis courts, the bridge, the vestibule, like all those kinds of things that we've been doing, anyone who does construction knows that when you're given X amount of dollar once you start working on a project, it always ends up being more. So if we only have a tight 70 to work with, then it becomes, and we really have no money because we're kind of at our limit as far as our debt and what we can afford or what we think we can afford. There's nowhere to go, but then you start cutting and then you start making compromises. And I think, that could be a problem. And I guess I'm just confused about when we talk about we might not have to raise taxes for the construction project. I mean, right now, this year, we've had to raise our taxes 2.29 to afford just our current budget. So if we're not going to raise our taxes, I mean, we have to raise them to afford our budget. We do it every year. And I guess one of my questions is, when is the last year we did not raise taxes? What year was that? And then, I just am not understanding, what are we going to cut then? If we have to at least raise 2.29 to afford our budget and our current staff, and now we're going to do a construction project and we're going to borrow, it's going to be more than what we think it is. It always is. So what's getting cut? What are we losing out on? Teaching positions? Are we going to be able to get those 2 reading specialists next year for the elementary school, for instance, if we embark on this construction project? So that's one of my questions. And I don't think anyone would argue that the middle school is rough. I mean, I would say that a lot of it is, it's been neglected pretty much since we did the high school. It's, I know the buildings are weird, but what concerns me is as we continue we're not necessarily fully neglecting the elementary schools, but they're not getting any better either. So in 6 or 7 years, are we going to be talking about how we have to rip Thomas Fitzwater down? Or they're all the same age. They've all got the same problems. So it's, 70 million right now. I don't know if it's wise to put all of our eggs in that one particular basket. As far as our bond rating goes, it's fine. It's not terrible. But there are so many area districts that have better than us. We're rated, the top rating is AAA, then it goes AA1, AA2, AA3, which I'm sure you know, or some in the audience might not. So we're at an AA3. Abington's AA1, Wissahickons AAA, Cheltenham's AA2, Upper Marion's AAA, Springfield is AA2, Radnor's AA2, and our current debt service is 12% of our operating budget. So if we're going to do this project in 10 years, maybe we'll be in a better position. But like to, say that we're going to embark on it now, I don't think it's financially responsible. And talking about like comparing it to maybe a residential mortgage where, you don't necessarily have $400,000 lying around, so you borrow money. In order to get a mortgage, you have to prove that you can afford that mortgage based on your current salary, not necessarily what you can raise or what your income might be based on what construction projects might happen. You know, it's almost like we're one recession away from just catastrophe, because we have a really good, you know, it's a really good market right now, but it doesn't mean in 2 years it will be. And we're borrowing and we're basing it off of what might happen. I mean, the villa might not bring in money if something tanks in the next year or two. None of that might sell. We just, you know, so to kind of pin some hopes on that. And then I guess my final thought would be, having new middle school is great. Having new science labs would be amazing. But if you're still going to put 28, 29 kids in there, it's not going to help them learn any better. It's smaller class sizes is what's proven to help. The high school is beautiful, but it has not helped our test scores, hasn't helped our graduation rates, hasn't helped our rankings. It's great, but so we do have to keep that in mind. It's teachers that make up the difference. Thank you.
Any other? Step up.
My legs are sticking with the chair. Jenny Patel. Debt fall off, I understand by grabbing Brenda and having her make that into terms that a for-profit accountant can understand. So the debt fall off, for someone who doesn't know, and I think I'll try to explain it, isn't that we're somehow gaining this money. It is, let's say we pay $12 million a year on our current debt. Next year, we only have to pay $11 million. So that $1 million is like extra money that we're saying we can borrow more in order to spend that $1 million still. And I guess my argument is, I think we should take the debt fall off like I would on my house. When my debt goes down on my house, I'm like, maybe I can do a project that I can afford. That's what you're saying, but I have to make choices. And like what Jen said, a teacher, the other buildings, air conditioning for the other buildings, maintenance of the other buildings, the windows for Fort Washington, I'll bring up again. So, and along with Jen said, I agree, if we already have above average debt service, the one way to get away from that is that when we do have debt fall off, don't borrow more. Spend what we can afford each year that we can afford it. And if we have to put away that $1.5 million this year to put it more savings so that then we have more down payment and we can afford a bigger project, that would be, to me, fiscally responsible, it seems. And I guess my quote here is that we can afford the debt service, but at what cost? We don't get the windows, we don't get air conditioning, we lose teachers, and again, with the 28 kids in the class is, I think, the bigger problem. And I think that was all I had to say. Okay, thank you.
Stan Rovsky, Maple Black. Yes, I'm on the committee. Yes, I'm a past commissioner for 8 years. Yes, there was a past school board member on that change and run committee. And yes, I am running for school board. And yes, I will be elected in November, and it is not my fault that no one ran against me. And you want leaders in that committee for St. John. You don't want liabilities. You don't want people that are going to be negative. You want someone who is going to be open-minded, who is looking for the future, looking at the future of Upper Delaware in this school district. You want someone who's going to want to invest in our greatest asset, which is our children, okay? These guys, these people here are dedicated to our community. They are doing their best, and they're not going to let this school district go down the tubes. And the way to do that is to invest in capital, okay? That's what you got to do. It's not their fault that Senior Ron has issues. It's not their fault. It's not anybody's fault in here. However, if we don't address it, if we don't address this now, it will be our fault. Thank you.
Any other community input? Okay, seeing none. Comments from the board? Anyone? Mr. Shaleski?
I'd like to, first of all, address the idea that the price of a project will go up no matter what. If you say it's 70, it's going to be something higher than that. I think what we do is we invest up front with experts that have the experience in lots of projects, that understand what the prevailing market is now for the types of projects that are being put together. And there's also a contingency built into those projects so that if something does come up, which invariably things happen, like you start digging and you find unsuitable soils, and things like that can happen. But if you build everything into a project and you do it well, which we have done in the past and I expect we will continue to do, then you won't see project creep. And the other thing is, if the board, the administration, and the project management team is working very closely with the costs throughout the project, you make sure that there's no surprises at the end, because you built in a lot of vigilance during the course of the entire project. And the only other thing I have to say about this project is that if we already know we have a building that has a lot of needs. We could address those needs right now at Sandy Run, spend that money, and in several years waste that money because we're going to need to do something, a more robust project than what we would elect to do now. By putting off what's necessary now, it's just going to cost more money in the long run. So no one likes to spend large amounts of money on projects, but sometimes you have to do it, and if you wait, it just makes the project more pressing when the time comes. And you never know. You could have a problem with mold or something like that in the building because you waited too long. Now you've got to close the school, and then you've got a real catastrophe on your hands. And we've seen that in various locations in nearby communities. So I think we just have to do the right thing as the time comes, and this is the time. We've put this off as long as we possibly can, and we've got to move forward.
I also wanted to just comment that when we built the high school, obviously it was based on the amount passed by the referendum, so we knew we couldn't go over that. Not that we can predict the future, but part of the process is putting a contingency fund together, which we did for the high school. And we actually did come upon some big, remember the soil issue behind Fort Washington, the trash that, and that was like $600,000 of oops. And we had the contingency fund, and then we balanced things against that throughout the project. I think it can be managed. It has to be vigilantly managed. You're going to have, like I said, we can't predict the future, but there are processes that you can put together to try to help absorb surprises.
That's a good example. When we ran into that the dump behind Fort Washington Elementary School, it was going to cost like about $2 million to get all that stuff hauled away. We're like, wait a minute, we can't spend $2 million on that. I said, can't we sort through this stuff? And that's what we did. We had them come through and screen all of that so that the dirt could be hauled off to a different landfill than the junk. And so instead of it costing $2 million, it was $600,000. Still didn't like spending $600,000, but those are the kinds of things you have to do, staying aware of your budget throughout the course of the project to keep the cost down as much as you possibly can and stay on budget.
Any other comments, Mr. Sir?
I have a couple. One question was, when was the last time we didn't raise our budget? I don't know the answer. I have data back to 1999, and the lowest in that stretch was we raised it 1% in 2000. There was a comment that, all the buildings have the same problems, and that's really not true. The big difference between the middle school and the elementaries of similar age is that the middle school does not really serve our educational needs well. The structure of the building was not built for team teaching, for example. We've got the two buildings that are spread out. The shape of the annex is, somebody earlier used the word weird, and I think that's not a bad one. So the elementaries, while they need maintenance, educationally they're okay. The middle school also needs maintenance, but it also needs the walls to be in a different place. There was a comment that we shouldn't be pinning our hopes on things like the villa coming online to increase our assessment base. So far, we have baked absolutely nothing into the budget on anything that hasn't come online yet. So, there's over 100 houses that are, or homes that are supposed to be built over in the former Ziegler Roses with Fenton Hills Regency, and we only have 25 in the budget so far because they haven't come online. And we expect them to, but this is what conservative budgeting is all about. We're using that $70 million number right now for planning purposes for the middle school. That is the high-end number. So it is all conservative budgeting all the way through. I think that's all I've got for now.
Right. And we are not at the limit of our debt. We can borrow more. A comment was made that we are currently at our limit for our debt. We are not. We're not. I agree with Mr. Sirota. I think that dollar amount, $70 million, very carefully calculated, analyzed based on the educational specifications that we're looking for that building, based on costs in the area, based on a number of different middle schools that have recently been built. The comment that we're going to end up raising taxes for this, and that there's, and we said that we will need possibly to raise taxes. We will talk more about that at the operations committee. We did discuss that at the project review committee in terms of the funds that we have already built into our budget, which we did not have any money built in for the high school. So all of the high school was borrowed, and we had to put that debt into the budget. So we're saying this is a different process right now in terms of what we're going to need, and we will be talking more about that on Thursday. And I will reiterate my statement, is I think, I believe that in the next years, we will continue to reduce our tax increase and complete this project, and also look at a long-range plan for all of our elementary schools, which we're starting to do already. Again, none of the revenue that we hope to get from other developments that are occurring in Upper Dublin have been calculated into the money that we have that we can use for this project. So if you come on Thursday, or we'll have another presentation in the near future in terms of what this project, because of the money that we've put aside already, the reoccurring money that we've put aside already, how much additional dollars we would need either as tax to raise the tax, or find a certain amount of money that we need to just the money that we don't have already put aside, how much more we will need. And that will be discussed again Thursday night, and we'll be talking about that in many meetings to come. So we are not putting all of our eggs in one basket. We are not putting all of our eggs in one basket. We recognize the needs that we have at the elementary schools. We have put in, we're already looking in terms of what we've put into the elementary schools over the past 4 or 5 years, and it is a significant amount. And we are doing work in all of the elementary schools, and we know and we plan to do more work in all of the elementary schools. The other comment, it always costs more. No, it doesn't always cost more. If we plan appropriately, Mr. Shimoleski knows it doesn't always cost more. It could probably cost less. It can probably cost less. That's all my comments, Mr. Sirota.
One more thing I wanted to add, and Dr. Ludwig, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me. But earlier she said that we might not need to raise taxes for this, and I just want to clarify that point. We might not need to raise taxes to cover this additional cost. We know other expenses will continue to rise. They always do. We know that salaries, benefits, pensions, healthcare, lots of things will continue to rise. We're just talking about specifically to cover the amount needed to cover the debt service for borrowing for a major project.
That's correct. Correct.
Any other comments addressing community input on the board? Okay, just a quick announcement from the solicitor regarding an executive session.
Prior to the start of tonight's meeting, the board met in executive session to discuss several personnel matters, 2 litigation matters, and a labor relations matter.
Okay, upcoming meetings, we have our operations committee, in case you didn't know about that meeting, on Thursday. We have a policy meeting on Wednesday, July 26th at 1:30. Next legislative meeting is August 21st, 2017. Are there any closing comments?
I just also add, just a reminder, the next project review committee for Sandy Run is August 8th.
In this room. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, motion to adjourn. Second. Dr. Kim, second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Enjoy the rest of the summer.